Packers could get reinforcement at a key position for Jeff Hafley's defensive scheme. The Green Bay Packers defense could soon receive a much-needed boost as they navigate through injuries and roster challenges. When the Packers released their initial 53-man roster ahead of Week 1, there were several notable surprises, particularly involving players placed on injured reserve, IR. Among the most unexpected developments was the season-ending placement of key contributors like running back A.J. Dillon and tight end Tyler Davis. However, there is hope for some reinforcement on the defensive side of the ball. Defensive tackle Jonathan Ford, who was placed on IR with an undisclosed injury, is now eligible to return after missing the first 4 games of the season. The Packers can activate Ford whenever they choose by opening a 21-day practice window. Though his exact status remains uncertain, whether he suits up for this week's matchup against the Los Angeles Rams depends on his recovery, but his return could be crucial as the team deals with defensive depth concerns. On Syria Frek, a new NFL rule creates flexibility. The NFL's modified injured reserve rules introduced this season allow teams greater flexibility in managing injured players. Previously, any player placed on IR before the final 53-man roster cut would automatically be out for the season. Teams had to include injured players on their initial 53-man roster if they wanted to bring them back later in the year, which created awkward scenarios of cutting veterans temporarily. For example, the Packers made use of this strategy by releasing long snapper Matthew Orzech during roster cuts, only to re-sign him a day later. Under the new rules, teams can now designate up to 8 players to return from IR during the regular season, and up to 10 players if they make the playoffs. This change provides teams with more flexibility in managing their rosters while waiting for key players to recover. Jonathan Ford's pre-53-man roster IR designation still counts toward this limit. On the surcasser, the importance of depth on the defensive line. Jonathan Ford's return could prove pivotal, especially given the Packers' current situation on the defensive line. During training camp, there was some speculation that Ford might not make the final roster and could be destined for the practice squad. However, as injuries mount and depth becomes more critical, Ford's role may become more prominent than anticipated. The Packers have relied heavily on a rotation of Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, T.J. Slayton, and rookie Carl Brooks in the first few games. Meanwhile, rookie Colby Wooden has been inactive each week, despite making the roster. The situation grew more urgent following the Packers' recent loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Defensive lineman Devontae Wyatt left the game with an ankle injury, and his status remains uncertain moving forward. If Wyatt is forced to miss time, Ford's return to the lineup could be particularly timely. His ability to plug gaps and add bulk to the defensive front could be invaluable in helping the Packers control the line of scrimmage, particularly against the Rams' high-powered offense. What Ford's return could mean for the Packers. Jonathan Ford's presence on the defensive line would add much-needed depth and flexibility to Jeff Hafley's defensive scheme. Ford, a 6'5", 338-pound force, has the potential to help the Packers shore up their run defense, which has been inconsistent so far this season. His return would allow for more rotation and help keep other key defensive players fresh throughout the game, something that has become increasingly important as injuries continue to mount. In addition to Ford, the Packers also have rookie defensive tackle James Esther on the practice squad. Depending on Wyatt's status and Ford's recovery, Esther could see increased opportunities to contribute as well.